Hey, all you cool cats, we're back with chapter 22 of The Enemy Above. And we're going along through this book. As I might have mentioned at the beginning, this book is based on a real event in a real place in the Ukraine. And I've been happy all along to share this book with you. And I want to remind you, if you are looking for more material like this, you can search hashtag authors take action and hashtag authors give back and hashtag books are essential on any of your social media platforms, and you'll find lots of authors that are out there doing readings and interviews and book talks and all kinds of information to help us get through this pandemic. So I hope everybody's safe. I hope everybody is comfortable as can be. And let's remember during this time, let's remember those that have the least among us and offer them our help. I know it's hard with social distancing, but sometimes all you need to do is check in on someone with a phone call, with a text. Maybe it's neighbors that have small children. Maybe it's the elderly. Maybe you can run errands for them. Anything that we can do to help lighten the load of those who need our help is going to be really appreciated. And I think one thing that this shows about our country is that we will come through this and we will be better people for it. So let's remember that we have a choice every day, and let's choose to be kind, and let's choose to watch out for one another, and let's all do whatever it takes to stop this virus. All right? So here we go with chapter 22 of The Enemy Above. Major Von Dusen was livid. The sun had risen an hour ago, and he had been ordered to wait by the bodies of the dead woman and her child until General Steuben arrived. He understood that he had failed miserably, but the longer he waited, the farther away the old woman and whoever had freed her were getting, making them that much harder to catch. He had been furious with his two privates for shooting down the Juden. If they knew he wanted the fugitives, they knew he wanted the fugitives captured alive. If General Steuben did not relieve him of his command for this debacle, Karl would make sure these two simpletons were reassigned. He would have them sent to the Russian front. But Karl had to admit that the world would not mourn the loss of two more Jews. If the woman was still alive, she and her child would have been sent away after her interrogation. They probably would have died anyway. Perhaps they had been spared future suffering. But really, that did not matter in the least. Their deaths were meaningless. Headlights cut through the morning mist as 3 half-tracks and a truck carrying a platoon of soldiers turned off the road and rolled to a stop. The column was led by a staff car decorated with a Nazi glass flag on either side of the hood, flapping in the morning breeze. The sight of the car filled him with dread. General Steuben did not wait for his driver to open his door for him, emerging from the Mercedes with grim purpose. If there was one thing Karl admired about his commanding officer, it was that General Steuben did not stand on ceremony or let the trappings of his rank get in the way of his duty. He was a no-nonsense soldier who always got right down to business. And this morning, the business at hand meant explaining the absence of prisoners. Von Dusen suddenly wished he were anywhere but here. The general's uniform was immaculate, his boots polished and gleaming, but he did not hesitate to walk into the muddy field where Von Dusen and his men stood near the bodies. Von Dusen and his men came to attention. "Heil Hitler, mein General," he said. The general repeated the salute. "Heil Hitler, Major." He did not look at Von Dusen. Instead, he studied the bodies lying in the field. "Report," he ordered. Von Dusen recounted the events of the previous evening. He told the general about tracking the 2 Jewish men to the cave and the ambush that they'd executed, and how he had not yet been able to make radio contact with the lieutenant he'd left in charge of rounding up the rest of the Jews who had been hiding in the cave's many tunnels. The older man's expression never changed. "So you discovered a hiding place with many Juden. You left with 3 prisoners. Why did you not stay until the cave had been searched?" he demanded. "The old woman, mein General," Von Dusen said. "She was obviously an important elder, assembler and leader of the Juden in the cave. In truth, I thought of shooting her there to break their spirit. But then I thought it wiser to remove her for interrogation. I believe she is giving the others instruction, a coded message of some kind. It seemed a better idea to remove her." "I see," the general said. "And how did she escape?" "We were attacked," he said. The general's eyes narrowed. "Attacked? By who?" I do not know, Von Dusen replied. At first I thought of parts of the militia, but now I do not think so. They had no weapons and... No weapons? Then how were you attacked? Major Von Dusen looked down. He found himself momentarily unable to speak. Sergeant Eberhard, perhaps hoping to save himself from a demotion, spoke up. We were surrounded, Herr General, he responded with conviction, and we were outnumbered. In the confusion, the prisoners escaped. I do not understand, Steuben huffed. If partisans attacked you, why are you not dead? Why did they not gun you down and take your prisoners? Someone please explain this to me. General Steuben's piercing blue eyes bored into Eberhard. Karl had no great love for his sergeant. The man tried too hard to please. He didn't think, and he was no match for Steuben's pointed questioning. We do not believe they were armed, Herr General, Von Dusen interjected. Excuse me? Von Dusen took a deep breath. He felt like his career with the Scapo was crashing right before him. Here in the middle of a potato field in this godforsaken country, the next words he spoke must be cautious. We know the militias are low on supplies. We believe they sabotaged our half-track. Then when they were on foot, they hurled stones at us. I'm sorry, the general eyebrows raised. I thought you said stones. That is correct, sir. General Steuben said nothing. He clasped his hands behind his back and circled the bodies of the woman and her child. Von Dusen found it impossible to read his impassive face even when the general completed his inspection and came to stand directly in front of Karl. Sergeant Eberhard, General Steuben called, you and your squad will return to Borta, where you will file your reports and await my return. The sergeant came to attention and saluted. Heil Hitler, he said. Turning, he ordered his men toward one of the half-track. Mach schnell, he said. The men marched away from the two officers in double time. The general was quiet for a moment. What to do with you, Major? What to do with you, the general muttered. Sir, the general held up a gloved hand. I do not need to tell you that you have made innumerable mistakes in the last several days. I am sure someone of your intelligence and ability understands that. Von Dusen sensed it would be best to remain silent. If the Jew didn't hear that an old woman has eluded you, it will raise their spirits. We must get our hands on her, and you will lead the search. You will find this woman and bring her to Borta. If you do not, the general's words trailed off. Thank you, my general, Von Dusen said. He could not believe his luck. It was still possible for him to salvage this mess and restore the general's fine opinion of him. The general turned on his heel and headed toward his car. Von Dusen followed sheepishly behind. As he walked, he thought about the attack. His hand went to the swollen spot on his head where he had been clubbed to the ground. He had barely seen the face of his attacker, but he could have sworn it belonged to a child. No, he did not think a militia had attacked them. It was a single person, two at most, that boy and perhaps another. His fury grew as he pondered how they had outwitted him. They had made an enemy last night, one they would regret. And that's the end of chapter 22, and we'll see you back here tomorrow with chapter 23. Everybody be safe. Take care.